antisocial, withdrawn, loner. If you're the kind of person I'm talking about today, you've been handed every one of those words at some point, usually by people who love you and are genuinely worried, which somehow makes them harder to argue with. A party gets canceled, and you feel relief where the disappointment was supposed to go. You spend a Saturday completely alone and wake up Sunday more like yourself than you've been all week. You go on a trip with people you love and come home needing 2 full days by yourself just to recover from the people you love. And somewhere in there, the verdict came down. Something's a little off with you. I want to spend the next few minutes throwing that verdict out, because almost every label you've been given rests on one mistaken assumption, that the time you spend alone is time you're suffering through. It isn't. There are 2 completely different states that look identical from the outside, and the entire misunderstanding of who you are lives in the gap between them. Loneliness is the ache of being unseen. Solitude is the relief of finally not being watched. One drains you, the other fills you back up. You have spent your life on the second one while the people around you kept diagnosing you with the first. So let me make the defense properly, and it starts with the wiring, because the wiring isn't up for debate. Back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Hans Eysenck found that introverts and extroverts don't just behave differently, they idle differently. Their brains run at different baseline levels of arousal when nothing is even happening. Extroverts sit lower on that dial, which is why they go out hunting for stimulation. A loud room doesn't overwhelm them, it switches them on. People like you sit higher. Your brain is already humming the moment you wake up. You were never starved for input. If anything, you're managing a slight surplus of it, all day, every day. So when you walk into a packed restaurant or a back-to-back day of meetings, or a party of more than a handful of people, you're not topping up an empty tank. You're pouring stimulation into a system that was already near the top, and solitude, for a brain built like that, isn't you hiding from life. It's you processing it. It's the stretch of the cycle where everything you took in gets sorted and filed and made sense of. Skip it and the system doesn't relax, it backs up, gets irritable, and eventually shorts out. Honor it and that same brain becomes some of the most focused, original machinery a person can own. There are 2 reasons you ended up wired this way, and most people like you carry both at once. The first you were simply born with. Somewhere around 1/5 of people arrive with a nervous system that takes in more than everyone else's. More sound, more emotional detail, more of the fine print of a room. And a system that takes in more also fills up faster. That's not a bad thing. It's sensitivity. And it has always meant you needed more recovery time after being around people. Not because you enjoy them less, because you take them in so much more completely that the experience costs you more to have. The second reason you built yourself. A lot of people who crave solitude grew up somewhere that being alone was the only room they got to exist as themselves. A house too loud, too crowded, too full of personalities that demanded a performance, or a home where being near a parent meant staying on guard. So you slipped away. Into your room, into books, into long walks, into the quiet pockets of the day when nobody was watching. And in those pockets you found out something most people never do, that your own company wasn't empty. It was crowded, with thoughts, observations, ideas, the version of you that only comes out when no one else is there. By the time you were grown, solitude wasn't a preference anymore. It was the address where your real self lived. Now here's where the misreading happens, because the same handful of behaviors get used as evidence against you again and again, and every one of them has been read wrong. Take the relief. A friend texts to cancel, and before the polite flicker of disappointment even arrives, something in you lifts. The evening just came back to you. To most people, a cancellation is a small loss. To you, it's a small refund, and it confuses you because you genuinely like the friend. You weren't dreading them. But the second the plan dissolved, your body exhaled. That isn't coldness. It's the clearest tell there is that you run on solitude as fuel. Then take the quiet. In a big group, something in you steps back, still listening, still present, still taking everything in, just not spilling much out. And people file it under shy or awkward or aloof. It's none of those. It's a nervous system doing math, economizing now because it already knows what the rest of the night is going to cost. Put that same person in a room with 1 or 2 people they trust and they might not stop talking. 15 people and they go still. That's not a contradiction. It's the same wiring solving 2 different equations. Take where your best ideas actually come from, which is never the brainstorm and never the meeting. The real idea shows up in the shower, on the walk, in the car, at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, and that's not a quirk. It's literally how the brain's creative wiring works. Left alone, with no external input to chase, your mind wanders off and makes the connections it can't make while it's busy performing for a room. If you've ever sat through a brainstorm feeling nothing and then had the whole answer land 30 seconds after you stepped outside, You already know this about yourself. Take the recovery too. Most people leave a wedding or a long family weekend and bounce back by evening. You don't. A wedding costs you the next day. A family weekend costs you too. A heavily social week has you quietly canceling plans you actually wanted because the system can't run one more interaction. And it isn't that you didn't love what happened. You might have loved all of it. Joy still costs energy, and your system pays that bill slowly. And then the one that finally closes the case. You can be alone for a long stretch and not feel lonely at all. This is the line the prosecution can't cross, because lonely people are alone and aching for company, and you are alone and full. A whole solitary Sunday doesn't leave you starved for conversation. It leaves you reluctant to rejoin the world on Monday. You might miss a specific person while you're alone. But missing someone is just love stretched over distance. Loneliness is a different thing entirely. The pain of not being able to be known. You can feel the first without ever touching the second. The state that would make the people around you miserable is the exact state where you finally get to be most yourself. That's the whole difference. And you've spent your life being tried for the wrong one. Living misjudged like that runs up a cost, though, and it's worth being honest about it. Part of the bill is just the constant correction. Every canceled plan, every early exit, every quiet weekend met with worry, and that gentle, relentless pressure to get out more, to stop isolating. It's well meant, and over enough years it does real damage, because it slowly talks you into questioning a need that was never a problem. Another part is the performance you start putting on to dodge all that worry. Showing up to things you didn't want to attend, staying past the point your energy ran out, smiling and engaging and participating, and then paying for it in private for days. Almost nobody clocks how much of a life can quietly vanish into either performing connection or recovering from the performance. And the last part is the worst, because it's actual loneliness. The real thing, finally. And it arrives not from too much time alone, but from being surrounded by people demanding the wrong kind of closeness. The partner who needs you louder, the family who reads less contact as less love, the friend who takes a canceled dinner personally. People who crave solitude often end up genuinely lonely, and almost never because they were alone too much. So if you've spent years apologizing for this, here's what I'd put in place of the apology. Stop treating solitude like a luxury you have to earn. It isn't a reward for a hard week or a treat you feel slightly guilty taking. It's the mechanism your nervous system uses to process being alive. And skip it long enough, and the system doesn't just tire, it crashes. Schedule it the way someone with a medical condition schedules the thing that keeps them functioning, because that's closer to what it actually is. Then start choosing your social life with a better question. Most people decide by asking, should I go? And should is a moral word, so it only ever produces guilty yeses. Ask instead whether a thing fills you or drains you. Answer it honestly, and the pattern shows up fast. Small groups, real conversations, people you trust on one side, large rooms, surface talk, performance on the other. Say yes to the first kind and no to the second, and your social calendar gets smaller while your actual life gets bigger. And underneath both of those, the hardest one, stop apologizing for the wiring itself. The world will keep pressuring you to. People will tease you for being a hermit, worry at you, take it personally, and you'll be tempted to over-explain and over-reassure everyone that you still love them. You don't owe anyone that performance. Needing to be alone is not a failure of warmth. The people who love you will learn it eventually, and the ones who refused to were never going to learn it anyway. And here's what waits on the other side of the apology, once you let yourself live the way you were built to. The exhaustion lifts, the dread of the next event fades, and the thing your solitude was guarding all along finally gets to come out, which is depth. The people who recharge alone tend to become the deepest thinkers, the most original makers, the most genuinely thoughtful friends in the room, not in spite of all that time by themselves, but because of it, because that time was never empty. It was where the work got done, the art, the insight, the slow digestion of experience that turns into something closer to wisdom. People like you, once you quit fighting your own nature, have a habit of becoming quietly remarkable to everyone around you, and that's because you finally learned to fake being outgoing, but because you started showing up to the people you love rested, present, and unmistakably yourself. So if you walked in carrying one of those labels, you can set it down. You're not antisocial. You're not withdrawn. You're someone whose brain runs on a fuel most of the people around you have never had to burn, and you spent years being judged by people filling a different kind of tank. There was nothing wrong with you. There never was. If there's someone in your life who keeps trying to fix you into being more social than you are, the worried parent, the well-meaning friend, the partner who takes your quiet personally, send them this. It might be the thing that finally translates you to them. If the quiet way the mind works on people is your kind of thing, subscribe and stick around. There's a whole shelf of it here. I'll see you in the next one.